Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. As we know, with all the events happening in the world, and to be honest, events that have been happening for years and years and years in our country that many just choose to ignore or not deal with. For so many people, there's no such thing as white privilege, and there's no such thing as racism, and there's only 1 out of a million racists in our country. Things I've been hearing, it goes to show how much ignorance there still is. I've learned a lot over the past 10 years about what is white privilege. Racism does still very much exist. It's a huge problem that we really need to talk about and we need to address. We can't just keep sweeping under the rug, pretending like everything's fine. We could sit here and have a whole conversation about institutional, systemic, generational racism that has just been in our country for years and years and years. I'm not going to do that. Please just research, do your homework, learn about that. I'm here today to talk about my experiences, my day-to-day, what I've seen, and hopefully that will shed some light. Let's go back to 2013, the Trayvon Martin case. I remember when all that was going down. I had moved to New York in 2012, and I remember in 2013, I had my first year of college, and I went back to live with my parents for the summer, and I was working 2 jobs, and I was saving all my money so that I could come back to New York, paying for school, paying for all my expenses to be able to live. So during this time, that's when the Trayvon Martin case was. Everyone was talking about it. I had moved to New York and I was working at Whole Foods at the time, and I was pretty much the only white person, I would say. Maybe there were like a couple other white people. Pretty much everyone I worked with was black, and I followed them all on Instagram. We were all friends on social media, so I would always see what they're posting, and I remember everyone was saying things like white privilege, it's a white man's world, it's, you know, this injustice happening. And at the time, me thinking, wow, they probably think I'm racist and that I'm so privileged and that I'm this white person and I'm this white America. And I was feeling this like really uncomfortable feeling. And at the time I was home in Virginia, and I remember my friend David, I called, D. Wills, I'll never forget. I was like feeling so uncomfortable about all of this. Because I was like, we always see these media things and it gets blown out of proportion and everyone freaks out and everyone says all these things about white privilege, and it would make me really annoyed because here I was thinking white privilege doesn't exist, I have to work so hard, I have to put myself through school, I have no money. At the time I was working 2 jobs, obviously. I wasn't given this easy life where my parents paid for my college. I came to New York going to City College because I was like, oh, I don't have a dad to just give me money to go to NYU. Like, everyone thinks that all white people are privileged, and, you know, I would get so annoyed by it. And so I mean, I don't think the same way that I did back then, but it really sickens me and saddens me that I used to think this way. It's just ignorance. It's you just don't know. As I've lived and seen more things in my life unfold and listened to more people's stories and just softened my heart, because I think we all have this pride and this hardness of heart and this thinking we know everything, because we do live in a very individual society where we see things through our own experience and we think that's true. We have this very subjective truth. So if something is true for you, that's your truth. If something is true for me, that's my truth. And we don't believe in objective truth. So I think that's a problem, because then we think nothing is true and nothing's a reality. It's just your experience is what's true for you and this is what's true for me. So if you have never experienced racism yourself, you might think, well, racism doesn't exist, and, you know, I'm not racist, no one in my family is racist, none of my friends are racist, therefore racism doesn't exist. We don't always listen openly to other people's experiences. My cousin Nikki posted on Facebook, and I thought this was such a perfect way to explain it, and I wish I had understood this sooner in life so I wasn't so ignorant. It says, stop being ignorant about white privilege. It does not mean you're racist. It does not mean your life has been easy. It does not mean you don't face struggles too. It means your life isn't made harder by your skin color. That's it. Have some empathy. I was really thinking about that because so many people think the way I was presented with white privilege was I was always so defensive about it. Every time people would talk about it, I was like, but I have to work hard too, and I don't have money, and my dad doesn't just give me money, and my life isn't easy. Very ignorant thinking that I had back then, because that's not what white privilege means. And I wish I had understood what it is that what my cousin posted on Facebook is that it's not that your life isn't so easy, but it's not made harder because of your skin color. So I started to see this unfold in my life when I had a job. And I remember I got this job, I applied online, I came in for the interview, the manager just smiled, and we smiled at each other, sat down, had our little interview, which is basically just, there wasn't really an interview, it was just, okay, great, so you can start next week, you know, here's what you need to wear, here's your uniform, great, you're on board, welcome, you know, to your job. So I was like, great, that was easy, I have a job. And so I started this job. One day, there was a guy who came in to drop off his resume. And so he came to the desk and dropped it off, and he's like, hey, are you guys hiring right now? And I was like, oh, I'll let the manager know, thank you so much. And then the manager, I later, maybe he wasn't there at the time, maybe he was in the back room. He might have actually seen the guy drop off the resume. I don't know for sure. But anyway, later I was like, oh, are we hiring because someone dropped off their resume? And he looked at me, he looked at the resume, he saw that I actually had a college professor say this, never put your address on your resume because you might face discrimination based on what neighborhood or borough you live in New York. So this guy was from the Bronx. And my manager looked at the resume, he looked at me, oh, what did he look like? Was he, you know, and I was like, what? What? Say it, like what? Basically trying to get him to admit his racism. Oh, nothing, and he just walked to the back. And then another guy, actually not the same person, this guy was never called back for the interview. And then another guy who actually was black came in for an interview, dressed super well, sat down for the interview, and I was seeing it happen. I was at the front desk and I was watching the interview happen. They were talking for quite a while. I think the manager was asking questions, and I was thinking, why is this interview going on so long? When I came in for this job, I was basically just given the job. What, like, is this really necessary? So that's one example. I used to think we all have equal opportunities, you just have to work hard to get what you want out of life. But honestly, we have to see before our eyes racism still very much exists, and white privilege still very much exists. Even though we don't want to admit it or we don't see it, doesn't mean it's not there. Something that I noticed that really clicked for me recently is that people tend to deny things because they haven't seen it with their own eyes. Saying things like, oh, COVID-19, it's a scam, it doesn't exist, we're being lied to. Because maybe they haven't had it, or someone in their family hasn't had it, or they haven't really personally been affected by it, they might think, oh, it doesn't exist. A lot of people dismiss God and Christianity, Catholicism. Oh, it's a book of fairy tales, you're just believing in lies, you don't know. Like, throwing away years and years of history, and people who have claimed, you know, that could be a whole other conversation in itself. I don't want to be too off topic, but you get what I'm saying, is that a lot of people deny things because they haven't seen it, they think it doesn't exist. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Another example is me and my friend were in a store. My friend who's black. We were shopping together in the mall, and I remember being in the store. I was maybe in one corner, she was in the other corner looking for things. She told me, she's like, Melanie, the guy's following me, the security guy or the manager at the store. And I was like, oh no, I mean, you're just being paranoid. Always, you know, me in my ignorance thinking, why does everyone think everything's about race? Not everyone in every store is going to be following you. Not everyone's racist. Typical ignorance, because I haven't experienced it for myself. So I was like, oh really? So then I went up to her and we were shopping together, and I saw we were in one corner of the store. He followed us. We walked to the other side. He followed us, was looking at her, making sure that she wouldn't steal anything. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm seeing before my eyes. He's actually following you. And of course, who am I that's the problem, is that we don't listen to our friends' experiences and validate, like, yes, this is your experience and this is real and I believe you. Instead, we don't believe, we have, you're just being paranoid, you're being dramatic about everything. No, I feel like in my life I have to be forgiven of these ways in which I've not believed friends or that I've written off people's experiences. So another example, I remember I was going to get a taxi, went to the corner. It's really rude to, if you see someone else waiting for a taxi, you don't go in front of them to get a taxi when you clearly see they're already waiting. So I saw a couple, very nice dressed black couple on the corner. And I'm like, okay, I'll go behind them, I'll let them get the next one, and then when they get their taxi, I can get the next one, just to be polite. So then I saw another guy, a black guy on the corner, raising his arm waiting for a taxi. And so two people, I was like, okay, let me just go behind them, let them get the taxis first. I don't want to be rude. Obviously I have to go somewhere too, but I'll just wait for them to get it first. So, taxi came, went by them, went by the other guy, came to me, who was waiting last in line. And I was so appalled. I told the taxi driver, I was like, they're clearly waiting there first. Why would you just go by them and ignore them when they've probably been waiting for a while? And of course, here I come, coming in. And I felt so bad, and I told the guy who was waiting on the corner, hey, do you want to split the taxi? Where are you heading? If you're going downtown, we can go together, come in with me. And he was just visibly upset. He was like, no, it's okay, just go, just take it. And so I went, and I got in the taxi, and I went to work. But what I should have done in that experience is, no, I shouldn't have got in. I shouldn't have taken advantage of the situation. There's another time, another taxi driver, I was in the Bronx trying to go home. Group of friends, everyone was black, I was the only white person. We were all in the corner trying to get a taxi. Well, they were just walking me to get a taxi so I could go home, because it was late at night, so just to be safe. And a taxi comes, and he wasn't stopping. And then my friend was like, no, it's not for us, it's for her. We're not getting in the taxi, it's only for her. And he saw me, that I was white, and then he was like, okay. So then he stopped, only then. And so then I got in the taxi, and I asked him, I was like, hey, is there a reason why you wouldn't stop for certain people and you would stop for others? And he was telling me his story. I actually have this film because during the time I was filming a documentary. Mind you, this was a black man who was driving, African. So I watched a really good video, because a lot of people make these whole race wars about white versus black, but I was watching a video of a woman explaining her experience with privilege. She made a really good distinction that I think we all need to make, is that it's not about white versus black. It's not this war, it's not this division, it's us versus racism. So, really love the way she explained it. I will link her video below, so definitely watch it to gain more insight into this if you're one of the people who doubts that white privilege exists. Really encourage you to just be open. There was another time when I was in a store, a deli on the corner, and there's times when I don't have enough money to buy something, or I figure, they tell you the total, oh, it's $2, oh, I only have $1.50, or oh, I only have $1, and they're like, oh, it's fine, just take it. And sure, great. And then another time, I'm in the same deli, it's the same guy at the counter, there's someone black who comes in. They do the same thing that I did, and I heard it happen, oh, I only have $1, I only have $1.50. And the person at the counter, oh no, sorry, not acceptable, can't, no, bye, and they refuse their service. And I'm thinking, if that were me, how differently they treated me in the same situation, the same person, the same amount of money, the same situation, oh, I don't have enough, and seeing how differently I'm treated. Another time, I was heading to work, so yes, I had to struggle, my life was so hard, all those things, that I didn't have enough money, I was paying for school, I was paying for all my expenses, didn't have enough money to pay for a Metro card. That's how broke that I was, is that I would walk to work every day, 30 blocks every day to and from work. Didn't have enough money for Metro card. One day it was raining and I just really didn't want to make that long walk to work. And so I was like, I'll just ask, if you go onto the subway, you can ask someone if they have an unlimited subway card, they can just swipe you in. So that's what I did. I go down to the subway and I see someone get out and I'm like, hey, do you have unlimited? Can you swipe me in? No, that's illegal. You can't do that. What are you doing? You're crazy. I don't want to get in trouble. And then the guy leaves. I'm like, okay, I'll just ask the next person. Next person comes, hey, do you have unlimited? Can you swipe me in? A police was standing nearby, comes up, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot my wallet at home. Didn't forget my wallet, just didn't have money. But that was my excuse. And, you know, oh, I forgot my wallet, I just have to go to work, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's okay. And the police officer, opened up the emergency door, let me through. No problems, no questions, nothing, just let me go. And I can't help but think how differently that situation would have been if I looked differently. Just one of the examples. There's some others that I could go to. That's my most mild story that I'm willing to share publicly. Have had some other experiences in my life that I'm not comfortable sharing, but with police related types of situations, seeing how it played out and how I've definitely been treated in a very advantaged situation. So just encourage everyone to please be aware that if you're white, if you look a certain way, you will be treated differently in many situations, and that's what I've learned, that's what I've experienced. Many more stories, those are just a few. And I encourage everyone to open up their eyes and see ways in which they've benefited from their white privilege. And I know everyone wants to say it doesn't exist, you know, I don't have it, I have to work hard, all those things. But just remember, white privilege doesn't mean your life is easy, that your parents pay for your college, everything's spoon-fed to you. That's not what it is. It's maybe you do struggle, but your life isn't made harder by the color of your skin. That's the key thing to remember. So yeah, I remember when I watched the George Floyd video, I was so horrified, so disgusted, sickened, sad. It haunts me. And one of the things, not only watching his death on camera, watching the officer's knee on his neck for that long, it's just been a lot to process lately. And one of the things that actually haunts me, aside from what actually happened, was the fact that there was an officer who was standing nearby doing nothing about it, looking so calm, so unbothered, everything was fine. That's what really haunts me, is because I see the officer and I was like, that's me. That's been me for so many years. Seeing things happen, experiencing such horrible things happen to others, but just standing there and not doing anything about it because, oh, well, you know, we think to ourselves that we're fine, we're not doing anything wrong. It's like, well, I'm not racist, no one in my family is, you know, things like that, thinking that everything's fine. Yet we willingly just stand by when horrible injustices are happening around us, and we don't stand up as we should, we don't say anything as we should, we don't stop the situations from happening as we should. So that's been something that's been haunting me. So I've just been really inspired lately to kind of reflect on the past and all these situations I've seen, thinking I could have done so much better, but obviously the past is the past and we can't change that. All we can do is realize our errors and move forward, and I just encourage everyone to be open, be aware to what happens around you. Just because we personally don't experience something doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Listen to friends. I'll never forget that same summer when Trayvon Martin, when all of this was going on, and I was one of those people who's, you know, racism doesn't exist. I was exactly the way that I see so many people reacting now, and it makes me so sad and so upset because I've learned so much and just want everyone to learn as well. I remember calling up my friend saying I was so troubled, I was so bothered. I wasn't bothered by what happened, I was bothered by all the racial tension, and it was making me so uncomfortable and all these conversations. And I'm like, come on, it's what was the year? Not 2020, it was like 2013 back then. Really? Everyone complains about racism. I remember I called him and he picked me up from my house and we sat in a parking lot in his car. We talked all night. I was listening to his stories of things he's been through, things his mom has been through. And in my ignorance, it's, you know, slavery was so long ago, and segregation and civil rights, like that's all behind us. And this is, you know, we're all equal and we all live in America and we have equal opportunities, and, you know, we're equal, right? Maybe there's a few bad apples. So he was telling me his experiences really openly. I was listening. I am shocked and horrified that, wow, all this happened to you. Slavery didn't exist and segregation, and, you know, I can't believe it. That's crazy. I think a lot of people go through that with their friends who, maybe you have a close friend who's black and you've never really asked them, tell me about your life, just tell me your stories, tell me what you've been through, tell me what you've experienced with racism. Just listen, just be open and listen, don't doubt, don't say, oh, well, you're just being dramatic, maybe you're just fabricating, making everything seem about race, you make everything about color, you make everything divisive. No, just be open, listen, and believe your friends. So, you will learn a lot. I encourage everyone to do that. Please have an open mind and an open heart. There's so much more that I could say, but that's pretty much all I have to say for now. As always, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell notification to be notified of new videos, and yeah, see you in my next video.